listening to Radio Sputnik. Telling the untold.
Welcome back to By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Sean Blackman, here with Jackie Luqman. And as always, we are your guide for connecting the political, social, and economic movements shaping the world around us. Oh, yes, we have returned top of the hour, March 5th, 2020. I almost said February. That's how quickly February passed us by. And as always, in 20 minutes, we'll be taking your calls to get your thoughts, ideas, comments, and queries about anything you've heard on today on By Any Means Necessary or anything at all relevant happening in this world. But there are other ways that people can reach out to the show. And if you would, Jackie, please let the folks know how they could holler at us.
So many ways, Sean, so many ways for our followers, fans, friends, family, and everyone else who would like to reach out and touch us at By Any Means Necessary here in Washington, D.C. To do so, they can do that at 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time by calling us at 202-521-1320. That's 202-521-1320. They can hit us up on social media on Facebook.com/BAM Necessary, on Twitter at BAM Necessary. Shows can be downloaded on iTunes, where we would very much appreciate a good rating from you. You can hear us on iHeartRadio. You can spot us on Spotify. You can hear us speak on Spreaker. That's Spreaker. You can listen to us live on SputnikNews.com and on your radio dial at 105.5 FM and 1390 AM in the Washington, D.C. area. Welcome to our new listeners and fam and friends in Kansas City, Missouri on 1140 AM, 102.9 FM, and 104.7 FM. And remember, at 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time, you can call us at 202-521-1320. That's 202-521-1320. But wherever you are in this world and however you do it, we want to hear from you.
We most certainly do. And joining us here for the hour is DJ Jamal One Love Muhammad, host of the Love Lounge radio show on SquareOneRadio.com. Jamal, thanks so much for joining us.
Always.
Absolutely. And, probably the biggest political news happening today, Jamal, is the fact that Elizabeth Warren has ended her presidential campaign. I believe towards the end of yesterday, she was talking about basically how, her and her campaign were going to pack it in, kind of reevaluate. That's the word that I think politicians tend to use when they're basically trying to decide whether or not to stay in the race. But as I said, she has decided to drop out of the presidential race during a press conference this morning, saying, quote, "I say this with a deep sense of gratitude for every single person who got in this fight, every single person who tried out a new idea, every single person who just moved a little in their notion of what the president of the United States should look like." Bernie Sanders giving her some well wishes, saying that Warren has run an extraordinary campaign of ideas, demanding that the wealthy pay their fair share, ending corruption in Washington, guaranteeing health care for all, addressing climate change, tackling the student debt crisis, and vigorously protecting women's rights. First of all, I got to say, I don't know if I'd feel that friendly about someone who accused me of being a sexist.
Maybe
but either way, and another interesting thing is that she has not endorsed anyone yet.
Right.
And so, we'll see who, if anyone, she endorses in the coming days. I think if you're Elizabeth Warren, you may feel like you want to sort of tread lightly about jumping out on one person or the other too early, depending on how things pan out. But what that basically means now, Jamal, is that it's basically a two-person race. Tulsi Gabbard is still continuing with her campaign. But in terms of front runners and people who are sort of looking the most viable in terms of the Democratic nomination, there's Joe Biden and then there's Bernie Sanders. And it's wild how quickly things shifted, because coming behind the New Hampshire and the New Hampshire and Nevada primary, after the debacle in Iowa, Sanders was looking very strong. And then, of course, South Carolina, where Joe Biden had that big victory, is where a lot of things seem to change pretty rapidly. I don't think that's by accident. I don't think it's because Joe Biden is such a great candidate. But I'm wondering what you're making of all this, Jamal, as we came from a field of 20 some odd candidates. What we described on this show was almost like a clown car of candidates, all these just random people. The fact that someone like Pete Buttigieg could basically come out of nowhere, out of obscurity, and be considered a contender is wild. But I think just kind of pretty telling about where we are in American politics today.
Yeah, so it's dwindling down to technically 3, but only 2. Elizabeth Warren, I was just watching her actually before I came down here to speak, and I don't know, man. Things shifted, and it took a turn that I don't think anybody was ready for. But I will say that it is a telltale sign of where we are as a country, because the Bernie blockade is amazing. What's happening? It's all of a sudden it's like we gotta stop this guy, and I'm waiting to see what Warren says, and if she's going to endorse anybody, because I always felt like Elizabeth Warren was Bernie light. She was closer to Bernie than anybody else as far as her platform. But I I think that I don't know, man. This whole thing of everybody jumping on the Biden train is very telling in a lot of ways, because he, as far as I'm concerned, watching him, I've watched almost every debate, and I was like, dude, you're screwing it up.
Right.
Like, in early on, I thought he was the best candidate to beat Trump, not because he was the best candidate, but because of America's mindset that, we need a white man that is going to be, that will make us comfortable enough to vote for. And we can still be complacent with a lot of the ideologies that we have and the practices that we have as a country. And I felt that he was that for those people. And he was also comfortable enough because of him coming from, the Obama tree,
Right.
that, even a lot of Black Americans would go with him too, and be strong enough. But then he started talking, and he was like, dang, this dude is crazy.
Yeah.
This, like, what? I mean, I'm like waiting. It's like I'm waiting for him to make a Wakanda reference. I'm gonna tell you right now. And it's like I'm waiting for him, like, I fought in the end game.
I was there.
I was right there with the Black Panther. It's like me and T'Challa were friends. He was like, what? Because the things he's been saying, and you were like, dude, all you had to do was play it safe, man. Your hand, you had the big joker and the little joker and the ace and the deuce, and you cutting yourself. Like, what's going on here? So, personally, out of the two, I mean, I'll make it clear that between Biden and Bernie, it's hands down Bernie for me. Mm-hmm. Fight me if y'all want to. I don't care. Based off of the wealth distribution platform of what Bernie's talking about, and we talked about it on this show, the whole socialist thing, which is ridiculous, but I've heard Republicans saying they want Biden as well because Bernie has a better chance of beating Trump. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've heard this from numerous Republicans because I actually watch Fox News sometimes too.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just to see, because I mean, some people drink Coke, some people drink Pepsi, some people drink Kool-Aid, yeah. So, but I've watched it, and they're actually more concerned about Bernie and what he can bring. But I would like to see what Elizabeth Warren does, because unfortunately, we still have not had a woman as either a president or vice president, and that's way past time.
Right.
If I had to pick one, I would like to see her on team up with Bernie if possible. I like I said, I'm not a Biden fan. If I got to pick between him and Trump, of course, is him. The lesser of the two crazies. But I would if I would like to see what Warren does. I don't believe, because she spoke and she said she wasn't upset about losing in her home state. I'm like, come on. I mean, that's like when your family don't root for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, come on, that had to sting.
Yeah.
And you didn't come in second?
Right.
You know what I mean? You got your butt whooped in your own backyard. Like, oh, that had to sting. And I mean, I know she's saying the right political things and being appreciative and so forth, but I don't, I'm like, no, your state let you down for real. It's like you count on at least getting your own backyard, So I don't know. We'll see. I hope that she does endorse Bernie Sanders. But right now, and this whole thing is crazy because the whole black vote thing, and I've been listening to you guys all week and last week as well. And we're talking about the whole, the black vote thing, and the black vote thing is more of a traditional route as usual, more instead of a logical or pragmatic, approach to what we need as people. Because what we need as people is we need some wealth distribution, flat out, So, but as usual, black people stand loyal to the Democratic Party, and they stand loyal to to the Obama tree, and I don't blame them per se. To if you're looking at it in that manner, but at the same time, ain't nothing changed for us.
Right.
So we getting the same results. No matter what color the dye is, it's like it's still coming out that we in the red. It's like, geez, man. I'm currently doing this thing where I'm posting on social media, in particular on Facebook and Twitter, every day, of all these black men that are being exonerated.
Right.
Okay. And it's got to the point where it's every day you're seeing it. I was just talking to my mom on the phone before I got here about that. It's like it's a new project I'm working on. And so what I'm saying is that, okay, the Democratic Party, as under the current format in which it has been for the last 40, 50 years, has not done anything to address that. So, going for Biden, who was part of the Obama tree, and I'm not saying this to throw Obama under the dirt. I'm saying this to say the reality of the situation is being part of the D.C. Ferguson movement and so forth. Mm-hmm. We did not see necessary critical change that could sway the needle to stopping this injustice and the mass incarceration. You're starting to hear more voices about it, but I haven't heard Biden say enough about it. I would trust Bernie more on it than I would Biden, even in the last election, I did. And I definitely didn't trust Hillary Clinton because of her and her husband's record. And she was a participant in it, and they're knowing what they were doing and locking up black men, especially in the 90s, we ain't even got to talk about the whole predator thing, super predator thing. Just look at the numbers and so forth. So, as far as all of this is going right now, we'll see. But I mean, I would encourage people, young folks, to get out there. Your vote matters, and you're seeing even with the whole Biden movement as of recent, it was more so the older black folks that were voting for him, and the youth kind of, because they have lost a lot of faith in our process and thinking that voting matters and everything. They're not out there as much in voting, but there's still time.
Right. Yeah, and Jackie, Jamal mentioned something that I think is important to what he described as the Bernie blockade. You know what I mean? This sort of all hands on deck effort on behalf of the liberal establishment to stop the Bernie Sanders campaign. And I tend to feel like that's really the overarching factor. in a lot of what we're seeing now. Because after Super Tuesday, it was a lot of finger pointing, a lot of blame being laid, a lot of, analysis and over-analysis about what happened and what this means for the South, what this means about black people in the South, what's this mean between, younger black folks and young black folks. But I feel like the root factor here is the fact that that wing of the ruling class clearly felt it was time to consolidate its power and influence behind Biden. It tried all those other anti-Bernies. None of them panned out, right? And so since none of the other ones panned out, then they had to readjust and get back behind Joe, which is what they were trying to do for the first time. But he, started being Joe Biden. Right. And they're like, maybe somebody else would be better suited to do this. But ultimately, it had to be him again. So we see Klobuchar and Buttigieg drop out in rapid succession. They both hop on planes to go say, I'm out, vote for Joe. Bloomberg, I think, got the same cue. Because I'm not talking about a memo being sent out or like a mass email being sent out to the Democratic Party establishment. This network of the establishment liberals, if you will, that network, they pick up on these signals that they see. So they know when it's time to get in line. Yeah. And so when they see this series of events not only happen, but happen so quickly, and that clearly all this momentum is being put behind Biden, they know, okay, well, now this is what we are clearly doing. You know what I mean? So I tend to feel that's really a big part of what sort of helped push Biden into the position that into where he's currently in, and what they're going to bank on carrying him through to sort of definitively defeat Bernie as we keep moving forward. And it's weird because I feel like things are being framed as if it's already over. I feel like people are treating like the mainstream media, they're treating Joe as the presumptive nominee at this point. But, this things are not over. You know what I mean? There's voting that still needs to take place, a lot that still needs to happen. And so, I just don't think it's an accident that it feels like we're all being kind of conditioned to basically see the writing on the wall about Joe. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I do think that's true. I mean, I had to remind myself, okay, there are 6 primaries left, I think.
Right.
And they're like a week or so away. But that shift Tuesday was such a a watershed, it was like the whole country went like, what?
Yeah.
What happened? And I think, to your point, Sean, the coalescing of the establishment to close ranks around Biden was, I think, encapsulated perfectly in what Jim Clyburn said. When I saw that he said it, I thought, well, that's kind of egotistical of you, Jim. But then when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? No. He's playing his role, and he knew the role he had to play. So Clyburn said, asked why he didn't endorse Sanders, and his answer was, well, Bernie Sanders didn't court my endorsement. Bruh, you are the representative of a state that is full of poor black people. Not everybody in the South who's black is not poor. That's not what I'm saying. Right. I'm saying that a large percentage of the population of the black people in South Carolina and in many southern states are poor. Clyburn represents South Carolina. A lot of those people are not only poor, but they are older and they are sick.
Yeah.
They have medical bills. They could use some Medicare for all. They really could. Bernie Sanders needed to court your vote for you to make that calculation? No, he didn't. You were doing your job as the gatekeeper of the South, really, for the Democratic Party, should they need to press that button to stop Bernie Sanders and, his growing movement. And that's what he did. I mean, it sounds conspiratorial, but just because it sounds conspiratorial, it doesn't mean that that's not the plan that they played. And it was.
Definitely. Well, we're going to move to our first break of the hour here and hopefully come back with your calls here on By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C. But we will be back. So please stay with us.
By any means necessary. We call Fault Lines with Nixon and Stranahan the most disruptive radio show in America.
It's a great show, and we have a lot of fun.
We come to you live from Washington, D.C. every Monday through Friday morning.
What I like best is that we bring in experts from all over the world. From Barcelona, from Egypt, from Seoul, South Korea.
From Newark, New Jersey. We try to bring people great guests, great calls from our listeners, and, of course, stupid jokes. And we do it with two hosts that have very different viewpoints. Now, here's the thing, Garland. A lot of people would think you and I would just argue. I mean, I'm a Republican Trump supporter.
And of course, I am a progressive Democrat Bernie Sanders supporter.
The surprising thing is how much we actually agree on.
And you won't be surprised because you're going to find out just how much you agree and just how much you enjoy this show.
Shooting from the lip.
We're taking no prisoners here.
Real opinions from real people.
Where we bring you people with controversial views, and instead of trying to catch them out, we actually let them expand on their views. What's going on in British politics, European politics, and indeed in world politics as well. And wherever you are, whether you're a UKIP supporter, a Tory or Labour, everything is in turmoil.
John Gaunt.
Shooting from the lip.
Stuck in traffic? No problem. Stay informed. Stay tuned to Radio Sputnik on 105.5 FM or 1390 AM in the Washington, D.C. area. Need more? Follow us on Facebook or check us out on SputnikNews.com.
Welcome back to By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Sean Blackman, here with Jackie Luqman. And as always, we are your guide for connecting the political, social, and economic movements shaping the world around us. My friends, the phone lines are open, 202-521-1320. That's 202-521-1320. Myself and Jackie continue to be joined by DJ Jamal One Love Muhammad. And we actually have a caller on the line. Uncle Brother, tell us what's on your mind.
What's happening, everybody?
Hey.
What's happening?
Hey, DJ One Love, long time no talk to. What's happening, man?
I'm good, brother. Good to hear you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I really want to address something that you said a moment ago, which was, I ain't going to throw Obama under the bus. Man, you better throw it.
I'm trying to be nice today, man.
No. Throw him under the bus. Now, about this. This is what I've been thinking about. What does it say about him, Brother Obama, now given all of what's been coming out about Jim Crow Joe, Jim Crow Joe, given everything we know about him now, what does it say that brother picked him as his VP?
Right.
His running mate. What is that? I mean, I can't get by that now. I mean, I couldn't get by that big old teethy grin when he was out flying and what do you call that, windsurfing with the man on his Virgin Island and all that stuff. What's the man's name? Branson. And I couldn't even get over that. You know, that was enough right there. But then now that I've learned so much about Biden, and he talked about the 90s, and you were talking about your new project, right? Posting all of these people getting exonerated.
Right.
Who was kind of behind all those people being in the jail in the first place?
Right.
So I think it was Jim Crow Joe. So look, throw that brother. Leave him there. Don't pull him out. Just leave him there. That's all I had to say. Thank you for taking the call. I'll holler at y'all later.
Bless, bro.
All right, thank you, man. We always appreciate you calling in. Jamal, any response to our caller here?
Well, here's why and much respect to the brother, great to hear him, why I don't feel like throwing Obama under the bus, because it's in the past in the sense of what we are focusing on right now. There's plenty to be said about Obama and the way he handled things. You know, I on my show, I talked about it quite often because I voted for Obama twice. Okay, and I'm not ashamed to say that at all. Good and bad. I did, and for my reasons, mainly because I wanted to see what this black man could do in office and see how the country would respond. And I got what I wanted. I saw how America responded, and I thought it was necessary to have him because we were getting blinded as a country and disillusioned as to the progress that we have, so-called progress that we have made as a country. Because prior to Obama, I took a lot of flack from a lot of black people in regards to talking about racism and white supremacy and its existence. And people were like, oh, we're past that. And why do we always got to bring that up? And this is things. And I was in the early 2000s, I would say around 2000, that's when I started investigating the prison industrial complex.
Right.
And that's when I really woke up to how gross it was. Like, I knew it was bad. I'm a black man who's experienced numerous times being arrested by the police. Never went to jail, thank God. But I've been handcuffed and I've been accosted and harassed on numerous occasions. And it seemed like every other weekend if we went out, the police would pull us over. When I was in college and after college, and I tell everybody all the time, I get pulled over by the police twice a year minimum.
Wow. I'm
50. And I still get this, okay? So I knew it was bad, but it wasn't until I started studying and doing the numbers, and and I was like, whoa, this is ridiculous. So I personally needed Obama to come in to show that, nah, it ain't that good out here. It's actually much worse than what we have been talking about. And I was just reading at the time, studying Dr. Claude Anderson and his book Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, and so forth. And a lot of other people, Dr. Chancellor Williams, and a lot of other people, just studying Black history, Amos Wilson, and so forth, and seeing the numbers and seeing what was happening. So back to Obama on that is that he highlighted and exposed the ugliness that was hidden in the shadows of America, that racism was not only still exists, but it was actually much worse than what people thought it was. And the freaks came out at night when Obama got in there. Let's just say that, because you started to see Confederate flags everywhere. And we know what happened with Charlottesville and all these other things and unfortunate situations. But when I look back on Biden and now me doing my history on him, I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Oh, and you said this in 77, and you said this in 90. Oh, okay. Yeah, so, but I don't want to ride too much on that because I want to focus on right now what's happening, not dismissing it at all, but just saying that, the task at hand is what we're dealing with right now for 2020, especially November the 3rd, what's going on. And seeing how this is going to play out, because this is interesting to me. I will say this much. I don't get nowhere near as many people talking about, I talk about race too much anymore.
Funny how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, like, I hardly get any flack from that anymore, because it was rough, man. It was like, man, that's all you talk about race. We need to get past that. We're better than, and this and that, we need to focus on this and that. Oh, okay. All right. Now you're seeing, and then it's not just black men, it's black women too.
Yeah.
That are being, locked up in, and I used to even talk about in the prison industry how cities like Baltimore had more black women locked up than black men.
Right.
And a lot of people didn't even understand that. Right. And do you understand what I just said? They really have more black women being locked up than black men in Baltimore.
Yeah.
The Wire, Baltimore, and it's like, what? And people weren't getting it. But now that you've seen Sandra Bland and all these others out here, and say her name, and so forth, that are being treated just as horrible a lot of times as the men, you're just like, whoa, we got a problem here. So yeah. And then this is under Obama's administration.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We have another caller on the line, Baltimore Charles. Tell us what's on your mind.
Baltimore.
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hey.
What's up, bro?
Brother, I hope you're not shocked about good old Baltimore.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
No. I just wanted everybody else to know.
Oh, sure. Well, we're down with that. We're down with that. old poem. I can't recite it word for word, but that old song. I visit Baltimore with great expectations, looking ahead, and then I met this little short white boy who was no bigger than an ounce, and I smiled at him. He smiled me back and called me the N-word. And from then to my end of my visit in Baltimore, I never enjoyed another day. But anyway, I'll recite that poem for you when I get it, because it's real interesting. Maya Angelou said it on stage, her program. Sister Jackie Luqman, you had a nice commentary at the very beginning.
Thank you.
About the Bloomberg effect. Let's put it that way. But I want to ask you a question. Do you think that since your mayor Bowser supported Bloomberg, and she said if you're down with Muriel, you're going to be down with Mike? Do you think that she'll lose her next election because of that particular support, or do you think we'll still be sleepwalking through that next election, and she'll be reelected? And I have one other serious comment before I get off here. The lady mentioned who was talking about the coronavirus in your program was very incisive. And we have to thank Donald Trump for decimating the FDA and for shortchanging the research on that virus and dropping that on us. Now, my wife went to her doctor recently because she had some kind of respiratory illness, and she asked you, what will we do if the coronavirus hits our area, which is in Maryland? And he said, well, just pray. I'm going to say the Trump people will add that, well, you can die. Just die.
Right.
Americans, you can pray, and then you can die. Because that would be the ultimate effect if that coronavirus hits us full force. So for those people out there who listen to your program, you can have your President Donald John Trump to thank for that particular effect on our society. I thank you for taking my call.
Peace.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Before we get to response, we have one more call on the line. Robert, thanks for waiting. Tell us what's on your mind.
Well, just to respond to your last caller, Muriel Bowser on the same way as Sharon Pratt Kelly, man. Telling us that she don't like mumbo sauce, so we ain't got worried. But, it's going to be a tough couple years, dealing with her, until it's...
Yes, fact.
But on the back end, why does everybody keep trying to sell us young brothers on Bernie Sanders? We ain't with that cat at all. We don't like him. He don't like us. We ain't none of us going up to New Hampshire or wherever. And none of that appeals to us. That's why we supporting Biden, because at least, we know where our head is at.
Where is it, though? I mean, tell me in your perspective where his head is at, because that's what I got lost somewhere in between one of his lies. I got lost.
Right now, I just started working a little construction job or whatever, and that came about because they had to get rid of all the amigos that was on the job that didn't have the proper identification to go to the next work site.
Right.
So because of Trump. If Trump wasn't in office, I wouldn't have this job right now. Point blank in the story. Because all the amigos will still be on that job.
Okay. Well, yeah, Robert. Yeah, we're not going to allow you to slander undocumented people on this show. But in a way, I'm glad you called. Now, you are within your rights to support whatever candidate you want. But what you're doing is propagating this notion of the difference between black folks and immigrants in this country. And the only people who gain from that is not black people, but these racist conservatives like Donald Trump, who don't care anything about you as a black working class person. all they care about is putting forth their white supremacist agenda, and they're more than happy to drag you along to do that if it will help them. I need to explain something to you, brother. We have to get out of this mindset that when one group of oppressed people in the United States, quote unquote, gets something, then the rest of us, quote unquote, loses something. So when we see that that there are undocumented people and immigrants working these jobs, you look at that and say, well, they have what is mine, or they're taking something that belongs to me, or they're taking jobs, or all this sorts of things. We need to be clear. We're in a situation where everybody could be working.
That's right.
Everybody. And not only could they be working, they could be working for a living wage. So we have to stop looking at things like the ruling class or the elected officials have some kind of goodie bag that they're just sort of passing out benefits and opportunities to people to the detriment of one group or the other. That's false. They're withholding these things from our all. Do you think that those undocumented people have those jobs because they go and they're treated well and paid well and all these sorts of things? No. They are oftentimes in a lot of these positions because the bosses at these places know that they can underpay them and treat them poorly, and that more oftentimes than not, the undocumented workers won't say anything for fear of having immigration come down on them or having to interface with the police and all these sorts of things. See, we have to see, right-wingers have told us this lie that immigrants and undocumented people just stroll up into this country and take up resources, and man, they just have a fabulous time. They just have a good old great time at our expense, and black people. That's just not so. It's extremely precarious being an undocumented person in this country. And so when we feed into that, we are feeding into a racist ideology that hurts us as well as our undocumented family. So you're not helping yourself. You're not helping black people by having that attitude. You are hurting the whole of the community. In truth, this is a system, this capitalist, white supremacist system exploits us all. It hates us all. It seeks to rob us all of our humanity. And thinking of it from that perspective, like what I'm talking about, and having solidarity with other workers and other oppressed people is how we overcome that, not by parroting the same sort of hatred and backwardness and reactionary tendencies and policies of the very same people who hate us the same way they hate them. But, Jackie, I would like to get your response to what Baltimore Charles said or what our other caller said.
Yeah, as far as what Baltimore Charles said, that's why I made the comment I did at the top of the show. Listen, we have to wake our people up. And, Muriel Bowser is the mayor of Washington, D.C. I do not claim her as my mayor because I did not vote for her. I understand how politics work. But, you can't be my mayor if you don't espouse the interests of me and people like me, certainly people of the class that you do not belong to. Mm-hmm. So, no, Muriel Bowser is not my mayor. She will probably be reelected because of the shifting demographics in the city. There are significantly fewer poor, working class folks in the city. Gentrification has shifted those demographics. But yeah, we definitely have to do some work on the ground in waking our people up to the realities of neoliberal, non-mambo sauce loving Muriel. And to the young brother who called, the interesting thing about that attitude that we have when we think, oh, we got a job when the undocumented are run off. Well, they were paid lower wages. You still don't have a living wage. You're still not a member of a union. You still don't have full benefits. So instead of paying all workers a decent wage, the employer pits undocumented workers who are exploited in one way against black workers who they exploit in another way. Right. And they run one group of people off, and then they give the other group of people literal crumbs, and they have y'all thinking that you're walking away from the table with something that, the undocumented folks were stealing from you. the business owner wins, the corporation wins, the capitalists win in that case, not us.
Definitely. Well, we're going to move to another break here on By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C., but we will be back. So please stay with us.
By any means necessary.
We are talking
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
You are listening.
We give you the most essential out of the endless information space.
Radio Sputnik, telling the untold. Tune in to Loud and Clear with Brian Becker for the latest news, commentary, and political analysis. What's really behind the political and social crisis gripping the United States and the world? Forget the spoon-fed soundbites from the pundits who know so little about so much. We bring you independent experts, analysts, and activists. Learn what really makes the decision makers take from the boardrooms of Wall Street to the West Wing of the White House. Here is where the people fighting for change speak and are heard loud and clear, 5 days a week on Radio Sputnik and SputnikNews.com.
Welcome back to By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Sean Blackman, here with Jackie Luqman. And as always, we are your guide for connecting the political, social, and economic movements shaping the world around us. My friends, phone lines are still open, 202-521-1320. That's 202-521-1320. I am here. Jackie Luqman is here. DJ Jamal One Love Muhammad is here as we continue. And I wanted to respond to what Baltimore Charles said specifically about Muriel Bowser and her endorsement of Bloomberg, and if that's going to, possibly impact whether or not she gets reelected as the mayor of Washington, D.C. I don't think it will. I don't think it will because the chief thing, in my opinion, as someone who's lived in D.C. for a few years now, the main thing that's kept Muriel Bowser in power is the fact that there's been no, real challenger for her, at all. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's just a complete lack of competition and someone who could pose an actual threat, to her position. So I hate to say it, and I think I've said it on this show before, I think that Muriel Bowser could really sort of be mayor of D.C. as long as she wants to. Ugh. Now, how much longer that is, I think remains to be seen. And even though I would wager that people in her camp, people who support her, people who vote for her, I would argue that there probably aren't a ton of Mike Bloomberg fans within that milieu, but that the fact of her endorsing Bloomberg, I don't think is going to be odious enough to them to not vote for her, the next time she runs for mayor, if that's what she does. Yeah. And I mean, I tend to think that Bowser is also at a point where she's angling. She's angling for whatever the next, move in her political career is. Because that's the funny thing about Washington, D.C. It's the nation's capital, and it's not a state. It's a city. Right. So the mayor, that's like the highest thing you could be.
Yep, that's it.
So if you have, sort of greater ambitions, you have to look elsewhere. You know what I mean? It's not like there's not really like a clear path from being, mayor of Washington to the presidency or to you know what I mean? It's kind of D.C. politics is kind of weird like that. You know what I mean? And so, that should be a disqualifying thing. But I think given the broader dynamics of D.C. as a political entity, I think basically has her pretty secure. Yeah. But Jackie, I know you had some other comments from the other caller that you were saying you wanted to make here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the young brother's comments about, young brothers are down with Biden because they know where his head is at. And this is where I think we miss the importance of political education. Yeah. People always think of political education as some, master class in civics level 330 or something. No. It's just seriously the history of policy, the history of politics and politicians. Joe Biden, his head has been with the segregationists through the 60s and the 70s.
Right.
He was against school integration.
Right.
He likes to say he was against quote unquote busing. But we talked about on this show before how busing was turned into this word to mean integration
right.
because kids have been bused to school in this country since 1940. So that wasn't a big deal. He was an author of the 1994 crime bill. Mm-hmm. He was a major contributor to the crime bill previous to that people don't talk about. I think that was the 84 or 88 crime bill, one of the ones that was before that established mandatory minimums.
Right. I think it was 84 though.
Yeah. So, I mean, people like to blame black folks that were, dealing with violence in our communities on the 94 crime bill. Who we going to blame 84 on? Right. That was Joe Biden and white politicians. Joe Biden shut Anita Hill down during the Clarence Thomas hearings. So we've got this man wanted to defund Social Security. He wanted to raid Social Security. He wanted to defund Medicare for, a long 40 years. This man is not on the side of working people. He's certainly not on the side of black people. He thinks black parents don't know how to raise their children. They can't read. And that's why our kids don't do well in school. Why would people be supportive of Bernie Sanders? Look, I'm not here to tell people who to vote for, but I'm 52 and I want Medicare for all. I'm 52, and I would like to have my student loan debts taken care of. Right. I know Sean would like to, too. I'm sure you would like to, too, and everybody else we know, so we don't have to worry about that debt. We'd like to have a federal jobs guarantee, so we don't have to deal with these kinds of silly arguments between oppressed groups of people over employment. When full employment is possible in this country, it's been done before. So, we need to understand not just who we're supporting, but the things that the people we support have done and the things the people we support want to do and where we fit in that.
Definitely. Jamal, your thoughts?
So, and I talked about it in the last segment. I don't agree with what the brother said, speaking on brothers and why they're rolling with Biden, because first of all, they're not all rolling with Biden. Right. No one group is rolling with one particular candidate, period, which is expected. That's natural. Mm-hmm. Now, are there a lot of black people rolling with Biden? Absolutely. But it goes back to me, him being a part of the Obama tree. Okay. And also the comfort zone in which still a lot of black people have when it comes to the Democratic Party. And there's still a whole lot of trust within the black community to the Democratic Party. And I'm not saying go Republican. What I'm saying is, why are you trusting someone who has not delivered for so many years? These empty promises, these hollow words of what we're going to do for you. I was saying this 10, 15, 20 years ago when I was like, okay, we're in D.C. I sit there and I see the CBC week. Mm. Okay, and I've said it for years. I said it on my show, and so have quite a few other guests, including black men, who said, "What does the CBC do other than throw some bomb parties?"
I was about to say they throw great parties.
The great parties, bomb parties. That's all you knew about them. And so then when we started to see the Trayvons and the Garners and the Mike Browns and the list goes on, I was like, where's the CBC at? They're not vocal. They're not strong. They're not present. When we got a black president and two black attorney generals, and we're not seeing them being vocal. Mm. Okay, so the criticism for me about the Obama administration as a black man was that this was the perfect opportunity I felt for black voices to be spoken, and it was muffled by Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, instead of addressing the true facts. We still have a country in which we're trying to make lynching illegal,
right?
And it's not so much about it being illegal in the form of how many people getting lynched today. It's about the fact that it's still legal,
right?
That it's not a crime. Legally, it's not a crime, and that's the thing about it, because when people always say, like I said in the last segment, "Oh, get over it, we're past that," it was like, well, why is that still, not illegal? And why is it that as of right now, after having 8 years of Obama, and once again, this is not about him, this is about the progresses of the country. Why is it that we have to have a Crown Act put in place for black people to be able to wear their hair naturally the way the Creator gave it to them?
Right.
And that you have, young boys having to cut their locks or cut their hair, in order to graduate or to participate in a wrestling tournament. In this era, like, come on, So we have not made that much progress. We've been distracted by certain success stories, allowances that have been given to us to do this, to do that. We get mesmerized by the black entertainers or athletes and their success, but that doesn't represent the masses of people, because when you look at the other side of it, and it took Michelle Alexander to come out with the new Jim Crow for people to like, oh my God, this is a horrible system that's going on here. But it's like, there's been plenty of black people that have been saying, no, this has been a big problem. The Central Park 5 wasn't this past couple of years, and they're the representatives of one of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of stories that we don't know about,
Right.
So as far as Biden, I'm like, I don't see nothing that is going to be any different as far as black people. Now, if like I said in the beginning of the show, if I got picked between him and Trump, I'm picking him over Trump, but he's not my first selection simply because I have not seen anything different. And unfortunately, I think a lot of young folks are feeling the same way about the whole process, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And this is why a lot of them, are not trusting and voting and so forth. And I get it. I understand. I remember when I was young, I didn't believe in it. I do say that, there are a lot of different ways you can be active in the voting system, especially locally, because we're talking about Bowser. You're talking about your mayors. They brought up Bowser, but I'm like, Bowser's not the only one that took money from Bloomberg.
Right.
How many black mayors did he pay?
100. At least 100.
At least 100?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, why did he go after them? Because it's the same formula once again being run over and over again that we're being fed. And I'm gonna say this, and I say this in the most optimistic way. It obviously isn't bad enough that we haven't learned our lesson. You know what I mean? I want things to get better, but when we're still blindly trusting the same person or same process or the same entity over and over again, you got to ask yourself, when do we do something different? And one of my sayings is that, it's an old Korean proverb that says, if you don't change the direction that you're going, you end up where you're headed.
Right.
So, you got to do something different if you want to see some change or something different happen. You can't keep falling for the same old tricks.
Definitely. We have another caller on the line. Keith, thanks for waiting. Tell us what's on your mind.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for handling that gentleman with aplomb and explaining to him that divide and conquer is something that he may be falling victim to.
Mm-hmm.
In a larger sense, he's representative of the dilemma that we have, which is there is no center.
Mm-hmm.
Viktor Orban, who is the guy who ordered his shock troops to throw pork sandwiches at the migrants trying to climb the fence into Hungary, is a microcosm of what's happening all over Europe. And we're falling prey here. And for the centrist Dems to believe that there's a center, they're out of their minds. And if we've got black people turning against brown people and all kinds of groups all at each other's necks, we need something other than centrist, what we call neoliberal Democrats. We need change.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Bernie's running mate, this is the question I wanted to ask you guys. I've heard everyone from Nina Turner to Elizabeth Warren. Can you comment on that? What do you think? Would that help him to have a black woman or, progressive on his, well, not a progressive, but someone like Elizabeth Warren? Just food for thought, but just tell me what you think. Would that make a difference for him? Thanks.
All right, we appreciate you calling as always, Keith. Jackie, I'll kick to you. What do you think about it, Keith's question?
At this point, I'm afraid to hazard a guess. I like Nina Turner a lot, and I think that she has the fire and the passion that he needs, because he clearly, Bernie, 75-year-old dude, he clearly doesn't have it. So she has that, and she has the legislative experience. People forget that the woman did serve in Congress. And look, she has the oratory that does appeal to some of us. And listen, I make this argument all the time. People warmed up to Obama when he started talking like a pastor. Yeah. He had to practice doing that. Yeah. So and that I know how weird that sounds, but that's just true.
That was true.
But look, Nina Turner is the real deal. Yeah. She knows how to talk to all the people because she has been all the people, So I think that would be a good move on his part. I think that would gain him some points. I don't know how an Elizabeth Warren vice presidency would benefit him. I think it's a good political move. I don't know how it will play among his very loyal base. I think there's a lot of mistrust among his supporters of Elizabeth Warren. I think if he were to pick a woman vice president, it would have to be either Nina Turner or, AOC can't do it. She hasn't served her first term yet.
I also don't think she's old enough.
Yeah, I don't think she's old enough either. I forget about that. But yeah, I don't know how much he would gain from an Elizabeth Warren presidency, vice presidency, but I don't see him not doing it either, because it's the smart political move, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you make an interesting point, because I do think that I think that Bernie Sanders surrogates are very open to sort of Elizabeth Warren in general. I mean, they've been saying nice things. You know what I'm saying? They've been talking about how they want to work with Warren supporters and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't, and truthfully, I don't know how deep that sentiment is amongst sort of, the actual Sanders movement. I mean, there's still people upset that she didn't just, drop out before the primary. Yeah. You know what I mean? Some folks still got a bad taste in their mouth behind that. It's an interesting question, Keith. Particularly for someone like Bernie Sanders to find the right vice presidential pick, I do think will be important. I would imagine it would have to be a black woman or a woman of color or someone like that for it to feel, like it's in line with his, what he's put forth as his politics and what his campaign represents and all those sorts of things, because, we know his campaign is kept afloat by youth people, by people of color, and all those sorts of things. So it seems as, particularly as, an older white guy, that would be important for him. And I actually wanted to swing back real quick to, I can't remember. I think it was Raheem when he said, what was, Obama thinking when he picked Joe Biden?
Right.
He was thinking that he wanted to shore up basically like white people who were nervous about voting for him as a young black dude.
Exactly.
That's what he was thinking. Mm-hmm. That was the value of Joseph R. Biden to Barack Obama.
That was a smart political move.
Yeah. Right. And nothing else. That's a smart political move. And so I feel like, and I tend to agree with Jackie, that would be a smart political move for Sanders in terms of picking Warren for a vice president. And, Warren definitely has influence and appeal to a certain element, I think, of black women specifically. So I don't know. A part of me wonders what, that element of the electorate, kind of collaborating a little bit more might look like. But I don't know. I think, there's a lot that remains to be seen, I think, in the coming weeks, definitely as these primaries continue. And we most certainly will continue bringing you the news, analysis, and everything else that you like to hear. We want to thank DJ Jamal One Love Muhammad. Definitely encourage y'all to check out his show, The Love Lounge. We're going to leave it there for today on By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C. So as always, we will see you next time. Peace.
Love.